Graphing on a restricted domain is not that difficult, but for some reason, a lot of students really struggle with it. Essentially, what's going to happen is your teacher is going to give you an equation that you're going to have to graph. And so, like, if we didn't restrict the domain, like for example, let's just imagine we did not restrict the domain. It would just be very simple. I could easily just graph this line, right? Nothing to it. Essentially, what restricting your domain is doing is it's telling you where to kind of make cuts on that line. So if you imagine this line again, basically when they restrict the domain at -1 and at 3, they're telling you to cut the line at -1 and at 3, and you don't care about anything outside of those red marks. You only care about this, like this blue section right here. That's what restricting a domain is. So when I approach these problems, basically the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to mark where they want me to cut the line. So they want me to cut the line, the left side at -1, which is here, and the right side at 3, which is here. Then I graph this entire line like so. Okay. And then I make my cuts. So they wanted you to cut it here at -1 and here at 3. So basically, all I care about would be this green section of line right here. I no longer care about this. I no longer care about that. And I'm almost done. The only thing about this that you really need to know is when they give this interval to you, a parentheses means you need an open circle there, and a bracket means you need a closed circle there. And really what that means, an open circle, -1 would not be included in my domain. It goes all the way up to it, but it doesn't quite hit -1. And a bracket or a closed circle means, for example, 3 is part of my domain. It goes all the way until 3. Okay, let's look at another example, because it's not always going to be a linear function that they give you. Sometimes they'll do these with, I've seen them with quadratics, with cubics, everything. So let's look at a quadratic. What if they said something along the lines of graph this equation and if you're here watching this video, you really should be able to look at an equation like this and basically know where the vertex is, what this graph looks like. You should be there by now. But let's keep going anyways. On the domain, let's do -1 to infinity. Okay. So the first thing that I do is I notice where they want me to make these cuts. They want me to make a cut at -1, and they want me to cut it at infinity. Well, if they tell you cut it at infinity, you're not going to cut the right side. So now I basically just graph the line. So I will have one cut here. All right, now I basically graphed the line. It would look something like this. I'm just using points to make it look a little neater. All right. So this one would be at 6. All right. So it's going to look something like this. It's just a quadratic. Now, in regards to these cuts, the cut at -1 has a bracket, meaning I need a closed circle there. And then the other one is infinity, so it's going to let this line go right forever. It's not going to go left forever. It can only go left until this -1 spot, but it can go right forever, all the way to positive infinity. So on this side, I'm going to put an arrow.